Alright, I wanted to put together a brief training video on how to sow and tend rescue caches. I am in a wormhole system that has a cache that needs to be tended, so I'll demonstrate that process. And while we're here, I'll go ahead and demonstrate the process for sowing a cache as well, since the process of finding the cache or locating a spot to sow a cache is the same. So I'm going to real quick look up where this cache is located that's here in the system to be tended. Okay, and I see that it is aligned with Planet 1 and at Planet 2. I'm just going to take a note of that for myself real quick. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead then and warp over to Planet 1. You want to start at the Align planet. So whichever planet it says it's aligned with, go ahead and warp to that one first.
Drive active.
Should probably turn off screen shake while I'm recording this video, but I'll maybe do a follow-up later and do that. Okay, so before I warp over to Planet 2, I'm going to go ahead and get a bookmark ready to drop. I know that I'm looking for about 27,000 kilometers off of Planet 2, so I'm going to get ready with a bookmark. I have a rescue cache folder. I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to go ahead and warp now over to Planet 2.
Warp drive active.
This one's pretty close, so I won't have long to... I'm going to try to drop this bookmark at about 150,000 kilometers out. We'll see how that worked. I'm going to drop a second bookmark right here, just so I can start bouncing back and forth between these two. And normally I won't go quite this slow, but I'm just going to demonstrate the process. I'm going to go ahead and turn around and align to that T1 bookmark, and I'm going to have a T3 bookmark ready to drop. And I can see that that bookmark is 47,000 kilometers away, and I want to be at about 27 off of the planet. So it's a little too far, so I'm going to try to drop a bookmark right before that T1 bookmark as I warp back to it. If I would have been a little bit more accurate on dropping my T1 bookmark, I might have hit it right on the dot. If you're in a slower ship, you have an easier time when your precision of placing that bookmark. So that's something to consider. A slower frigate is actually a better ship for sowing and tending caches. So we'll warp back to that and try to drop that bookmark. We'll see how we did. I'm a little slow sometimes, a little too late in dropping the bookmark, and I don't get it exactly.
Warp drive active.
Yeah, I didn't go very far on that one, so that gets me to about 40,000, 41,000. So I'm going to drop my T4 on my way back.
Active.
Okay, we'll see how that did. And so I'm just narrowing that gap between the bookmarks that I'm dropping, trying to get that rescue cache to show up on grid. Okay, now that one gets me closer to where I want to be. And now you just see over here the cache did pop up on my overview, and as soon as that happens, now I can warp to it directly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to warp to within 10 kilometers of it.
Active.
You can warp to 0. I don't like to warp to 0 on top of stuff. It'll uncloak you right away, and this way it just gives me a little bit of opportunity to assess the situation in case someone else happens to be on grid when I get here. So Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and open the cache to tend it. I'm going to grab the password out of our tool there, and when I get within range to open the container, it'll prompt me for the password, and I'll have that ready to paste in. Alright, I'll paste that password in. Well, I've got a password error. Requested task requires the general password to have been entered. I actually have not seen that before. I don't know what that means. Let me see if I can put in some different password. Okay, well, I'm not going to be able to tend that cache because I can't get into it with the password. So that's okay. I've got another bookmark out here that's pretty close to where we want to be, and I'll just sew a new one at that place. What we would have done, though, is just verified the contents of the cache when we open it up, as long as it's got a launcher, 8 probes, and some hugs. Hugs are optional, but those are always nice for a stranded pilot to see those in there. So as long as those items are in there, then I could go ahead and mark the cache as healthy on our tending form, and I can put in any notes related to that cache. Otherwise, I can mark it as expired or upkeep required. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and expire this cache since the password was bad. Alright, so I marked that one as expired, and I'm going to go ahead and sew a new one now. I'll warp over to one of my bookmarks that I made while I was in the process of doing this one.
Drive active.
And I actually want to get a little bit further away. So that this current cache goes off grid, goes off the overview, just so we don't confuse pilots. So this bookmark is still within our window of 22,000 to 50,000 kilometers, and yet the other cache dropped off grid. That's helpful. We don't want someone to visit the wrong cache. Normally you would only have one in each system, but in this case we're going to end up with 2. Because that other cache is anchored, I'm not able to scoop it up to my cargo hold. That's why I'm just going to leave it there in space. I could destroy it if I had guns fitted, but I don't, and I don't typically like to shoot at things, so we're just going to leave it right where it's at. And we'll just note in our notes when we sew this one that there's a new cache at this new distance of 40,752 kilometers. Okay, so before I uncloak, I am going to go ahead and in my cargo hold. You could do this in advance. I recommend you do that. I am not prepared today, so I'm just separating out of my stacks the items I need for this particular cache. So I need one container. I'm going to put a snowball in there, my 8 core probes, and 1 launcher. And I'm going to go ahead and uncloak. I'm going to launch my container. You want to make sure that you launch for self. Do not launch for corp. That won't work. And I'm going to go ahead and open up that container, and I'm going to drop into it my goodies. So I've got those items, 8 probes, 1 launcher, my snowball. I'm good to go. Next, very important, I want to anchor that container. Start the anchoring process. The rest of this you can do at a distance and cloaked. So you got to launch it, fill it, and anchor it while you're next to it, uncloaked. Then you can move away and do the rest of the process while you're cloaked up at a safe distance. So I'm just going to orbit at 4,500 meters and go ahead and complete the rest of the process. I have a little notepad document, and in here I just have my different names for the caches. There's 4 different names that are approved names. You can use any of those 4. So I'm going to right click on the container and I'm going to set the name. And then I have a whole bunch of pre-generated passwords. You can get those from random.org/password or /passwords, I forget which. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. Okay, so with the name set and the password set, now I can go ahead and finish my entry. So the location planet is planet 2, the align planet is 1, the distance is 40,752 kilometers. Paste in my password. Okay, so I've got a new cache now sewn in that system. So I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to delete that password just so I don't reuse it, although it wouldn't be the end of the world if I did reuse a password every now and again. It's just a little bit more secure to use a different one each time. And I'm going to check that that cache now says unanchor. So as long as that the tooltip menu item says unanchor, I know that the container has been successfully anchored. If it still said anchor, then I would know that I hadn't done that yet. The anchoring process does take 60 seconds, which is why I went ahead and started that before I did the rest of it, so it can be anchoring. That 60-second timer can be counting down while you do the remainder of the process. So I know that it's anchored, I know that it's got the right stuff in it. The final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to warp back to the planet. Actually, one thing I do like to do first is I'm just going to make a bookmark for this cache, so in the future if I ever came back to tend it, I could find it real easily. And if I end up back in this system in the future, I can sew a new one right at this same spot. So just a little convenience. So my naming convention maybe is not a great one, but I put the system name, the planet it's at, aligned with, the planet it's aligned with, and then the distance in kilometers. So, all right. So with that bookmark created, now I'm going to go ahead and warp to the planet, and I just am doing this to check to make sure that the cache goes off-grid when I'm at the planet. And it, as you can see, it disappeared. So it's gone from the planet, so it's not visible. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to warp to the customs office, and I want to make sure that it's not visible from there either, which, since it's on the opposite side of the planet, it won't be. That means that that cache is not going to be stumbled upon accidentally. It's not going to be easy for somebody to accidentally run into that. They're going to have to work at it to find it if they want to find it and destroy it. And with that done, I'm going to go ahead and warp back to my safe spot. From that safe spot then, I could scan down signatures in this system if I wanted to do that. I could find data and relic sites to run possibly if I wanted to do that, or other content if I wanted to run other PvE content in this wormhole. Otherwise, I could go ahead and start scanning down the next wormhole and jump from here into that new system and continue to sew and tend caches. So as you can see, it doesn't take that long. I did it a little bit more slowly so that I could explain it as I worked. But once you get in the swing of things, you can do 3 or 4 caches an hour, no problem, especially if you're just jumping system to system and not doing anything else in between. So hopefully that's helpful to those of you who have not done that before. We do run a rescue cache training fleet once a month. I try to do that on the second Sunday of every month, right around noon U.S. Eastern Time. Usually ends up being 1500 or 1600 Eve time, And if you ever want to join one of those fleets, that'll give you some hands-on experience with a team of people. But hopefully this video can serve as a stopgap and get you up and running if you're not able to join one of those fleets anytime soon. Thanks so much, and let me know if you have any advice for another video I could make or how to make this one better. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.